In a small town in Texas, there was a famous public pool known as Blue Lagoon. It was a gathering place for young people and families during the summer. But behind the laughter of children and the joyful atmosphere, there was a local legend warning of the shadow that lives at the bottom. The legend claimed that 30 years ago, a young boy named Jacob drowned in the pool during his birthday party. His body was never found. Even after the pool was completely drained, divers could not find a single trace of him. Since then, people began to notice a mysterious shadow moving at the bottom of the pool, especially at night. Some even claimed to see a hand emerging from the water, trying to pull in anyone who got too close to the edge. On a hot summer night, a group of friends, Sarah, Mike, Emma, and Tom, decided to sneak into the pool after closing hours for a midnight swim. They knew the legend, but they dismissed it as a silly story meant to scare kids. When they arrived, the pool was dark and silent, with only the faint glow of the moon reflecting on the water's surface. They jumped in, laughing and splashing, but after a while Emma noticed something strange. "Did you see that?" she asked, pointing to the bottom of the pool. It looked like something moved. At first everyone laughed, but Sarah felt an eerie chill spread through her body. "Let's get out of here. This place is creepy," she said. But Mike, always the bravest of the group, decided to dive down and see for himself. As he descended, he felt the water grow colder. With each foot he went deeper, and when he reached the bottom he saw something that made him freeze in terror, a young boy's face smiling up at him. He tried to scream, but water filled his lungs. When he didn't come back up, Tom dove in to save him, but then he disappeared too. Minutes passed in panic before Mike suddenly resurfaced, but something was wrong. He was laughing loudly, his eyes wide and filled with terror. "Jacob says he wants us to play with him," he said in a strange voice, right before being yanked back under the water. Sarah and Emma ran from the pool in horror. When the police arrived the next morning, they found no trace of Mike or Tom. The pool was empty. But at the bottom they discovered an old, broken, and soaking wet child's doll. Since that night, Blue Lagoon was permanently closed. But locals say that if you pass by late at night, you can still hear the laughter of children echoing from the empty pool, and sometimes a shadow moves beneath the water. In a small town in Missouri called Shin Creek, there was an old plaza known as Boker Plaza. This plaza was once a popular place where townspeople gathered to chat and eat at the small stalls scattered throughout. But this vibrant history began to fade over time. People stopped visiting the plaza gradually, and the main reason was the dark place that brought unsettling memories to anyone who dared approach it, the Plaza Bathhouse. The bathhouse had once been a great and convenient place for the town in the 1920s, but after a series of strange incidents, it was abandoned. No one dared to go near it. At this time, Emily Harris, a 21-year-old curious young woman, loved to explore and search for mysterious stories. She had lived in Shin Creek her entire life, but she always heard about the Plaza Bathhouse and the strange things that happened there. These stories intrigued her more than anything else. One day, while talking to her close friend Jack Lopez, who worked at the town library, he told her about an old book from the late 19th century. The book contained references to the abandoned bathhouse. The book mentioned that in those days the bathhouse had been used for unknown purposes, and some people had disappeared there. Jack said, "Emily, if you really want to know what happens there, we need to go, but don't think this will be just a regular exploration. This place holds something dark." Emily replied, "I'm ready. I'm not afraid of anything." That night, after sunset, Jack and Emily met near Boker Plaza. The sky was cloudy, and the mist enveloped the area. The air felt heavy, as though something strange was in it. As they walked toward the abandoned bathhouse, their eyes caught every little detail around the place. The walls were ruined, the windows were closed, but there was something odd, the faint light emanating from a small window in the upper floor of the building. Even though the bathhouse had been closed for years, Emily said, "Do you see that? There's light." Jack, worried, replied, "That's impossible. The place has been closed for years." Despite this, they decided to approach cautiously. As they got closer, they felt something strange in the air. There was a bizarre odor filling the space, a mixture of moisture and old mildew. When they got closer to the entrance, they both felt as though invisible eyes were watching them. Jack pushed the heavy iron door open and they entered, but once inside, they realized that things were bigger than they had imagined. The bathhouse was full of old, mysterious items. The walls were covered with carvings. that seemed to shift before their eyes. The place was dilapidated, but it still had some broken furniture and old photographs hanging on the walls. Suddenly, they heard faint whispers coming from somewhere inside. The whispers were unclear, but as they got closer to the source, they became clearer. The sound spoke of strange events that had occurred in this place decades ago, and what the Plaza bathhouse had been hiding. They entered a small room in the back of the bathhouse filled with old books and photographs from a bygone era. When they examined the pictures, they noticed something odd. The faces in the photographs were moving. They were changing before their eyes, as if sending them a message. The colors sometimes faded, then returned, as though time was repeating itself. The place was full of shadows moving quickly and inexplicably. The bathhouse walls were trembling, as if the place was about to collapse. When they approached one of the old photographs, they discovered something unusual. The picture featured a person who seemed to have been well known in the town long ago, but his eyes were hollow and dark, as if they carried a deep secret. Jack panicked and said, "Emily, we need to leave now." But Emily, clearly affected by what she had seen, said nervously, "I can't leave this place. There's something important here. We need to find out what it is." They eventually discovered a hidden room beneath the floor, covered in dust. It had a very old, carefully sealed door. Emily cautiously opened the door, and when they entered, the atmosphere underground was completely different. It was pitch dark, but there was a faint light coming from the corners. The room contained drawings on the walls that told a strange story about people who had disappeared in this place decades ago. Strange sounds filled the room, and the lights began to flicker ominously. They felt as if they had entered another world, a world ruled by forces beyond comprehension. Suddenly, the whispers became clearer. It was no longer just whispers. It was a conversation from a person long gone, echoing from the past. They were surrounded by something invisible, something from the past trying to return to life. The bathhouse was perhaps a place that had trapped lost souls, or maybe it was a curse on the entire town. But one thing was certain: Emily and Jack were now part of that story, and they had to decide whether they would escape or face the dark mystery waiting to be uncovered in the Plaza bathhouse. But would they be able to escape before the past consumed them? Or would they become trapped in this strange world forever? While they were in the hidden room beneath the ground, the place began to vibrate with strange noises. The shadows that had followed them started moving faster and more violently. The walls began to collapse slowly, as if the place was about to collapse, but they couldn't escape now. They were stuck in a strange world governed by forces they couldn't explain. Emily touched the crumbling walls, and suddenly she found something strange. An old piece of paper stuck to the wall, covered with mysterious symbols. The symbols seemed to move, as if they were breathing. When Emily touched the symbols with her fingers, the sound in the room began to change. The whispers turned into loud screams, the voice of an old man shouting at them. The only word they could hear was, "Your escape is impossible." At that moment, Jack felt an icy chill seep into his bones, and his hands began to tremble. He weakly said, "Emily, we can't escape this. We've gotten into something bigger than us." But Emily, despite the fear that had overtaken her, was determined to uncover the truth. She said firmly, "No, Jack. There's a way out. We need to figure it out." Then, as if the place had answered her challenge, the ground shook suddenly. At that moment, an old ghost appeared before them. He was wearing old clothes and seemed to be the original guardian of the place. He spoke in a low, terrifying voice. "You will not leave. You have become part of this place. What happened in the past will not stay in the past." But Emily didn't back down. She ran toward the closed door that led to the bathhouse exit. Jack followed her, but the ghost tried to stop them, saying, "Anyone who enters here never returns, unless..." Emily reached the door and suddenly realized that there was something strange about the door's key. It had a symbol similar to the ones on the walls. Quickly, she figured out the puzzle. She inserted the key into the door and turned it. At the moment she did that, a blinding light erupted, illuminating the room. The shadows shattered into pieces, and the door swung open before them. As they ran toward the exit, the walls began to collapse behind them. The ground beneath them cracked, as if history itself was crumbling, leaving them behind. Emily and Jack ran from the bathhouse, gasping for breath, but they knew that the place wasn't just abandoned. It held souls that had never found peace. Even after escaping, they felt as though they were being watched. As they looked back, Boker Plaza seemed calm as always, but the abandoned bathhouse looked as though something invisible was watching them, waiting for another moment to come to life. "Are we safe now?" Jack asked in a quiet voice. Emily, who seemed to have lived many lifetimes in that place, replied, "No one is safe, Jack. This bathhouse holds something beyond comprehension," and the town, despite its outward calm, had gained another secret. In the quiet suburbs of California, in a neighborhood called Brookstone that lay between the bustling city and the peaceful hills, there was an exclusive neighborhood known as Brookstone. It was always known for its quiet streets, upscale homes, and the large, pristine pool at its center. This pool was the place where families gathered on weekends, grilling under the warm sun and enjoying the cool water. But what no one knew was that beneath the calm surface of the pool, there was a dark secret waiting to be uncovered. It was a bright Saturday afternoon when the incident happened. The pool was crowded with families, kids laughing, and parents lounging on poolside chairs to avoid the heat. Everything seemed normal, but that was before someone noticed the body. Sarah Parker, a young woman in her late 20s, was one of the many who loved spending her weekends at the neighborhood pool. She had recently moved to Brookstone with her fiancé Jake after their engagement. They were in the middle of planning their wedding, and this weekend seemed like the perfect opportunity to relax before the chaos of the big day. Sarah was sitting by the pool, enjoying the warmth of the sun on her skin, when she noticed something strange. As she casually scanned the water, her eyes fell on a floating object. At first she thought it was just a pool toy or debris, but when she looked closer, her heart sank. It was a body, a woman, lifeless, and floating face down in the deep end of the pool. Her blonde hair spread out like a halo around her head, and her clothes were soaked, clinging to her body. Panic spread quickly through the pool area as people began to scream and shout. Sarah froze in place, trying to process what she was seeing. The lifeguard was the first to react. He immediately blew his whistle and jumped into the water to pull the body out. It wasn't long before paramedics arrived, but by the time they reached the scene, it was clear that the woman had been dead for some time. The police arrived shortly afterward, and the atmosphere at the pool shifted from confusion to suspicion. Everyone was talking in hushed voices, wondering who the woman was and how she ended up in the pool. Her identity was quickly revealed. Her name was Vanessa Green, a 32-year-old woman who had lived in the neighborhood for several years. She was always seen as friendly and social, a regular at the pool with a close-knit group of friends. As the investigation began, the questions started piling up. How did Vanessa end up in the pool? Was it an accident, or had someone placed her there deliberately? Sarah couldn't help but feel a strange unease as she recalled her interactions with Vanessa in the past. Vanessa had been friendly, but there was something about her that always seemed a little too perfect, too eager to please. It wasn't until later that Sarah discovered that Vanessa and her fiancé, Jake, had once been more than just acquaintances. They had shared a complicated history, one that Sarah hadn't known about until the police started digging into Vanessa's past. Jake was one of the first people questioned by the police. He seemed shaken and genuinely surprised by the news of Vanessa's death. He insisted that he hadn't seen or spoken to her in months, but the detectives were not convinced. There were whispers around the neighborhood, rumors that Vanessa had been secretly obsessed with Jake. Some of the neighbors even claimed to have seen her hanging around his house on more than one occasion, leaving strange notes on his doorstep. As the investigation continued, Sarah began to dig deeper into the life of the woman who had turned her world upside down. She discovered that Vanessa had been involved in a bitter dispute with another woman in the neighborhood, Rachel, over a man. And the tension between the two women had been building for months, with several confrontations in the past. It was clear that Rachel had a motive. She had been jealous of Vanessa's apparent relationship with Jake, and it was rumored that she had confronted Vanessa just days before her death. The police eventually arrested Rachel after they found a key piece of evidence, Vanessa's phone, hidden in Rachel's house. The phone contained several threatening messages from Rachel, including one sent just hours before Vanessa's death, warning her to stay away from Jake. The case was closed and Rachel was charged with first-degree murder. But even after the arrest, the questions lingered. Was Rachel really the killer, or had someone else been involved? Some believed that Jake had known more than he was letting on. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that there was something her fiancé wasn't telling her. She began to question everything, their relationship, their future, and the life they were planning together. As the days went on, Sarah found herself standing at the edge of the pool once more, staring down into the calm water. The pool, once a symbol of relaxation and fun, now felt ominous and foreboding. The sun had set, and the lights around the pool flickered in the evening breeze, casting long shadows across the water. It was then that she heard a voice behind her, a whisper that sent chills down her spine. "Did you think you could escape the truth?" It was Jake. He stepped closer, his face pale and his eyes wide. Sarah turned to him, her heart racing. She had known something was off, but now the truth seemed to be unraveling before her eyes. "I didn't do it, Sarah," Jake said, his voice trembling. "But I know who did." Sarah felt her stomach drop. She had suspected Jake knew more than he let on, but now, hearing the fear in his voice, she knew that he wasn't just innocent. The confession came tumbling out. Jake had been having an affair with Vanessa months before he met Sarah. And when Vanessa found out about his engagement, she had become desperate, threatening to expose their past and destroy his relationship with Sarah. In a fit of rage, Jake had confronted Vanessa just days before her death, pushing her into the pool during a heated argument. He hadn't intended to kill her, but in the chaos, she had hit her head on the pool's edge and drowned. Sarah was in shock as Jake's confession hit her like a punch to the gut. Everything she thought she knew about the man she was about to marry had been a lie. As the police arrived to arrest Jake, Sarah couldn't bring herself to say a word. She felt numb, standing by the pool where Vanessa's body had been found, a silent witness to the horrifying truth. As the news spread throughout the neighborhood, the once idyllic image of Brookstone was shattered forever. The pool that had once symbolized community and leisure became a haunting reminder of the dark secrets that could lie beneath the surface. For Sarah, the hardest part wasn't just losing her fiancé, but realizing that she had never truly known the person she had planned to spend her life with. The poolside, once a place of joy, had become the site of a tragedy that would haunt the town, and her, forever. In a quiet suburban area in Texas, where residential neighborhoods are filled with modern homes and upscale sports facilities, there was a popular swimming pool known as Hyde Park Pool. The pool was a special place for many families who brought their children to train in swimming, and it had earned a good reputation over the years. Children of all ages took swimming lessons there, and while most of the lessons were held during the day, there were some evening sessions specifically for the more advanced swimmers. The coach who managed these evening sessions was Jeffrey Hamilton, a swimming instructor known for his calm smile and friendly approach with the children. Everyone trusted him, and parents thought he was the perfect person to teach their kids to swim. However, Jeffrey hid a dark secret. Every night, children would head to the pool after dark for their lessons, where they would meet Jeffrey and his fellow instructors. The training sessions took place under the dim light of the lamps, and the atmosphere was always eerily quiet. The children would swim with enthusiasm, but Jeffrey took advantage of the darkness and silence to do something sinister. He would lock the gates and separate the children from the other instructors, then begin to assault them. Weeks passed, and some children began to exhibit strange signs. Their faces became somber, and their behavior became more anxious. Then parents began to notice changes in their children's behavior, especially one child who became silent about swimming lessons and preferred staying home. There was growing concern among the families, but no one had solid evidence. Then the truth came out. One day, Emily, a 12-year-old girl, decided to speak about what was happening during those late-night lessons. She told her mother that she had felt something strange every time she was asked to stay in the pool after the usual training time. She added that the coach had acted in an uncomfortable way and touched her in a manner that made her feel scared. Emily's mother, who had suspected something was wrong, decided to talk to the pool manager. With the investigations that followed, shocking truths came to light. It turned out that Jeffrey had been exploiting the children who attended the evening lessons, using the dark time to carry out his vile actions. After multiple victims came forward with their accounts, Jeffrey was arrested, and it was revealed that many children had been assaulted over the past months. Emily's case was just one part of a chain of similar incidents reported later in other places. Warnings began to spread among parents about the need to verify the nature of their children's activities during late-night lessons. Jeffrey's case became the talk of the town, and videos of similar stories from across the country began circulating online. there was an increasing fear and vigilance from the community, and the once popular pool became infamous due to the monster that had hidden among the ranks of the trainers. In the end, the community felt betrayed because this man, who had been considered a hero to the children, had used his position to fulfill his twisted desires. The stories of Emily and the other children serve as a constant reminder to be cautious and to protect children at all costs.